Good afternoon everyone, and thanks for joining me on the video today. As you've seen from the title, we've got another little bit of terminology to throw into the little dictionary we're putting together. I'll probably try and get a little playlist put together of all the little times we've did something like this, just so that they're nice little reference points for you to go back and watch if you're new to the channel, you've not seen the other ones, or even you maybe wanted to refresh your memory further down the road. But today we're going to talk about what we're going to call the Seferovic principle. Okay, now I've seen this guy get mentioned on a few things: Facebook, Twitter. Oh, this guy's had a great season for Benfica, Nations League, might get linked to a transfer, etc, etc. And when I have seen these posts, I've been quite quick on some of them to comment and shut the guy down a little bit, because I'm just not a fan of him. Okay, now I want to start off by saying, I explained this in a video previously. I don't want to harp on about it too much. I've mentioned it once, maybe twice, and this will probably be the last time I mention it for the foreseeable future. But I personally am a UEFA licensed coach, okay? And when you're involved in football, right, and as football fans, we've all got the tendency of saying, oh, that player is shit. He is terrible. What's he doing with a pair of boots on? He's not fit to play football, blah, 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 right? The fact of the matter is, anyone who plays professional football, if you were to play with them on a pitch, in any fashion, 11-a-side, 7-a-side, 5-a-side, whatever, they would be light years ahead of anything you could possibly imagine in terms of technique and control and that type of composure, these types of things. Okay, so whenever I am part of saying that about a player, I do always have that at the back of my mind and think it can be a bit disrespectful to the individual. But as football fans, we all have our opinion. But the Seferovic principle, okay, so the guy, I've went on record as calling this guy a shit Heskey, right? So I'll explain about that in a little bit, right? But the principle we've got, right, is if you go back to one of the early videos I did where it's called something like the key to success on Football Index, okay, and I basically spend about 15 minutes telling you it's all about your knowledge of football, what you see in a player, things you know about, things that you can read between the lines on. Recently, me and myself had a good example of that with Olivier and Cham. Just I know he's probably going to leave, and a few other bits and pieces. Okay, so your own knowledge does come into it a lot. Okay, but equally, what you've also got to factor into that is the fact that probably somewhere in the region of 95% of people that buy a player, especially within this kind of price range and this kind of notoriety level, they don't have the first Scooby-Doo clue about them. Okay, now Seferovic, let's have a look at the numbers, okay, before I go any further, right? So this is his career as a whole, okay? He started off at Fiorentina 9 years ago, so he'd have been about 18 or something like this, and went on loan to Jamash, I think that's in Switzerland, back to Fiorentina, down to Serie B or Serie C with Novara, did okay. Went to Sociedad, that's probably a transfer, and then Sociedad been in La Liga, 24 games and 2 goals. Then he's went to Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. He's had 3 seasons there. He's amassed 88 games, and in 88 games in the Bundesliga, he's not got past 20 goals, which for a centre forward, and bear in mind, Frankfurt, I know they've had a great season this year, but overall, over that time period, 2014 to 2017, they're definitely a mid-table Bundesliga club, and if you're mid-table in any of these top 5 divisions, and one of your main strikers who's playing 30 games a season is struggling to get into double figures, then it kind of tells you a lot about the person. 24 games in La Liga just might not suit your style, I can understand that. Serie A in Italy might not suit your style, I get that. But then when you move to Benfica, okay, and you then move out that top 5 league category and you move into that secondary 5, which I'd probably call Portugal and Holland being the main kind of proprietors of that level, then if you go and score goals there, then cool, fair enough. But his first season there, 20 games, 4 goals, is a pretty poor return. And this year he's had a great season, don't get me wrong, okay? If we look at the national team, I might need to go to Wikipedia just to condense this, okay? But you can see quite easily, since he's moved out of the youth level, he's got 1, 2, 4, 7, 11, 12, something like 17 goals for the national team. 17 goals in 5 years, and they've been at World Cups and Euros, and he's played, and if you look at the tournaments that they've been involved in, qualification processes, he's been involved all the way through it. And when you're a main centre forward for a team like Switzerland, that, fair enough, they don't score a lot of goals, but they're very tight and very organised, and typically teams like that will play well off a centre forward and use that target man. And you can think back to other teams that have been built on a centre forward. I know this guy's not the main guy for Switzerland, but you think about maybe like Shevchenko at Ukraine, and these types of guys that just take the national team and really run with it. He's not really offered that. Okay, I personally have watched him quite a lot when he was in Frankfurt. At that point, I was living by myself. I had an ESPN subscription, and I just watched football. So I was starting out my badges. I watched football like 3 hours a day every day. I was absolutely crazy for the stuff. And then you see him in World Cups and Euros, this type of stuff as well. And I personally just think the guy is pretty terrible. Okay, now I do put an asterisk on that and refer you back to the point I made earlier in the beginning of the video. He's obviously a talented footballer, and it's just at this level, and for the stuff we're talking about, I just don't think he's really that good. Okay, now that being said, players can always have a good spell, they can always have a good season, and they can always find themselves in a situation where it works. Okay, and there's examples of that right the way through football. If you think about guys probably quite famously like Vincent Janssen, he's had a great time in Holland, went to Spurs, he's not quite made it. And you think about the guys maybe on the reverse, maybe like, I don't know, maybe even like somebody like Kevin Prince Boateng, couldn't make it in the Premier League, went to Italy, did okay, went to Spain, did okay, and ended up going to Barcelona, off the back of those performances. So sometimes a player just needs to find himself in a good situation in a league that's of their standing and of a manager that likes them and a system that suits them. Okay, so some players need a lot of things to go their way for things to tick out. Okay, now let's go back, right? Football Index. Okay, now a lot of the stuff I've just mentioned there about Haris Seferovic is totally irrelevant on Football Index. Okay, the fact of the matter is he plays in a non-qualifying league. He's had an amazing time, and he plays national team football. Okay, so in Football Index, a big driving force in capital appreciation is merely speculation, is the ability for them to rise in value. And what I mean by that is what we call inherent value. So inherent value is the ability to capture dividends, PB, IPDs, MB, all that stuff. Okay, if you have an inherent value, you're more likely to capture more of these things on a more regular basis. Then by default, your price will rise on the index because more people will identify that inherent value and buy into them. Okay, so at the moment he has a good potential to gain more inherent value by a transfer, moving to any of the top 5 leagues, returning to a Germany, Spain or Italy, or if he was to go to France or to England. He does have that ability to step up. He's had at 27, he's at the peak of his career, and he might go on and do very well. Okay, so you do have to. So the Seferovic principle, okay, is if you don't rate a player, okay, you don't think they're that good, you've seen them, you know something about them, whatever, you do have to understand that the principle of the Seferovic principle is that the Football Index community probably don't give a damn. If there's the likelihood they might be linked with transfers, and the likelihood that a transfer might come off, or a good run of fixtures, if he was to find himself in France, let's say he went to like a Monaco, just to name a team, and they've got a good run of 5, 6, 7 fixtures where he could go and bully a few teams and go score some goals, then again, your opinion on that player not being that great kind of goes out the window, doesn't it? Okay, so going forward from now, we'll be referring to the Seferovic principle, and that is on players who you might personally think are naff, but they might have something coming their way, or they may have a season of a lifetime that can change the perspective of the overall community. And if you've bought them when they're naff and your price is really cheap, and you see, oh, do you know what, other people might think this guy's actually really good, and I know he's pretty crap, so what I'll do is I'll buy him when he's cheap, and then when people start to think, oh, maybe this guy could turn into something, you might then want to go and sell him. Now, don't get me wrong, they're playing Portugal tonight. He might go on and have an absolute blinder of a game because the game is in Portugal. Okay, and this is the last really big game he had for Switzerland. He went and scored a hat-trick against Belgium, which is very impressive on the face of it. When you kind of strip beyond that, at left mid, they've had Chadley and they've had Boyata at centre-half, so it's not as if Belgium are the best team in the world, but that is a very impressive fixture, very impressive result. So they could really do anything. He could make me eat my words tonight. He could go and score a hat-trick against Portugal, who knows, because Switzerland are a very notoriously tight team, okay? player for me to look at just while we're chatting about this on a little side note is Remy Freuler. Okay, now Remo Freuler is somebody who I bought at the beginning of the World Cup. Didn't really do too much. We moved them on. Okay, but this is a nice, tidy little midfielder at Atalanta. Plays quite a lot for Switzerland, and if Switzerland do well, he has a good potential to score assists tonight, as well as get some potential match day, depending on that. He was linked with someone at the beginning of the World Cup. I think it was maybe a move to West Ham or something. So just a little footnote, I seen his little name there. He had an informed player on FIFA at the time before the World Cup, so FIFA 18, which is why he caught my attention and why I watched him at the back end of last season and through the World Cup. And I've kind of had, you know what it's like in Football Index. Once you watch somebody for a little while, your eye always catches on them when you see them on the increase or the decrease list. So just a little footnote there, guys, okay? So the Seferovic principle, okay? Comments, guys, thoughts on what we've discussed, please drop them below. I'm very interested on what you think, not about Seferovic in particular, but perhaps any other examples of players like this who we can think about, who have not maybe done so well in other formats and other leagues, but when they've made that transition over to a team and a style and a manager that suits them, they've done really well. Probably a really good example of this is somebody like Timo Pukki. And if you don't know much about Timo Pukki, go check out his track record and his history of clubs he's been at, and you'll probably see what I'm talking about. Okay, guys? If you're new around here and you've liked the discussion, please subscribe. It means a lot to me, guys. Like, share, retweet if you find me on Twitter, guys. I really mean that. All that good stuff. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.